You are listening to the Ivy Podcast. Learn from the thought leaders in areas of strategy, innovation, negotiation, and all things leadership. We interview the Ivy League, Fortune 100, and top startups. Now, here's your host, John Karsibayev.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Ivy Podcast. Today's special guest is a good friend, someone whom I consider a mentor, coach, and a leader, Nikki Anders. Nikki is currently Vice President of Client Engagement and responsible for post-implementation customer experience, creating delight and optimizing execution for all medical specialties served by the Modernizing Medicine. Nikki brings extensive knowledge and leadership from her 20-plus years of experience driving scale and operational excellence in fast-growing companies in healthcare, mortgage finance, human capital management, and hospitality. Nikki has held various leadership roles in product management and development, professional services, and customer experience solution delivery. Nikki's focus is to work at the intersection of business and technology, managing quality operations while driving continuous evolution and delivery of solutions that achieve targeted and measurable business results. Prior to joining Modernizing Medicine, Nikki worked as a consultant for Deloitte Digital, Accenture, and Cloud Sherpas, leading customer experience and delivery initiatives on Salesforce.com and a variety of cloud technology platforms. Before spending 5 years in consulting, Nikki worked at Ultimate Software for 12 years, where she played various leadership roles in product management, professional services in corporate technology, delivering complex company-wide programs to scale and grow customer experience and operational capabilities. Nikki started her career in the restaurant industry, where she fell in love with the customer experience and holds a Master's of Hospitality from Florida International University and a Bachelor's of Science in Math Computer Science from Emory University in Atlanta. In her free time, Nikki enjoys fitness and outdoor activities such as biking, walking, golf, and paddleboarding off the beautiful Florida coast. Nikki, welcome to the Ivy Podcast. So happy to finally have you here.
Thanks so much, John. I'm really happy to be here as well.
That's great. I'm glad we finally were able to find some time. I know you're very busy right now with these days at Modernizing Medicine, so I appreciate you taking the time.
It's important.
As you can hear, Nikki is very accomplished and seasoned executive. So we go way back approximately 5-6 years ago at Ultimate Software. That's where I first met you. Fast forward to 2018 or 17, where you now find yourself as the Vice President of Client Engagement and Modernizing Medicine. First off, as the name of the company suggests, can you tell us more about how you guys are modernizing medicine, in particular with the healthcare? What are some of the really cool and modernizing projects that you currently have underway?
Yeah, so Modernizing Medicine just turned 9 years old. So it's amazing with everything that we've accomplished at the company, that we've only been around for 9 years. And really the most innovative thing that we've done, which started 9 years ago, was writing the first iPad electronic health record system. A pretty cool story too. Our founders, Dan Kane, who's our CEO, and Michael Shearling, who is our Chief Medical Officer. Dan went to visit Michael in his office, his dermatology office, and after the visit, somehow the two of them decided to form Modernizing Medicine, and together have built a great company with a lot of innovative products. So, our core product is where, we're really innovating, modernizing medicine and focusing on patient outcomes and doctor experiences to make, really everything better. And healthcare is a tough industry with regulation and really automating medical specialties, given the science and obviously all the knowledge that we need to put in our applications to facilitate practice management, scheduling, patient visits, and so on. So as part of this innovation, we have 18 doctors on staff, and our platform allows these doctors to code in our applications. So not only are our doctors innovating on our platform, but they're also working with us in client engagement to bring delight to our clients and accompany us on visits to our clients. So it's, they're really serving the full gamut of bringing their medical knowledge to the table, coding that knowledge in our application, and then interacting with our doctors and with our clients to optimize the experiences that they have with modernizing medicine. So since I do run client engagement for the company across all of our vertical specialties, another area that we're innovating in is the customer experience that we're providing. So when we're outside of our product and we need to get support or we want to collaborate with other clients in the ModMed communities, we're really in the process right now of launching a new community site for our clients. And while some of the things that we are doing are not overly innovative in customer experience, for our industry, they're very innovative. And when we're demoing our community site and ideas portal to our clients, what we're hearing is that we're really the only company that is offering these types of capabilities for customer experience and customer service in our industry now. So we're really, really proud of that.
That's very interesting, and I love the story about the founding partners, and I can definitely relate to some of the challenges that you guys are facing being in healthcare as well. And it's really insightful to hear that you guys actually have physicians and, the doctors as the actual practitioners who are, hands-on with the product that you guys are building. So I think that this is definitely really cool.
Yeah, I mean, we drink our own champagne. So, not only are these doctors involved in us developing the application, but our doctors are obviously using the application in their own practices. Mm-hmm. So that really gives us, great quality assurance for anything that we need to adjust or, innovate and evolve.
Definitely. Now, as a person in charge of client engagement, you touched upon that a little bit in your first response. I'd love for you to spend some time talking about this particular space or that functional role in particular. How's this different from product management per se, and what are some of the strategies that you employ as part of making sure that your clients are in fact engaged?
Love this question. Within the company, we have a new head of product management who just joined us, and when I first met him, we talked and really engaged in conversation because I do have a lot of product management experience and we have similar backgrounds. And what I told him and what I talk about within the company is that I do consider myself the product manager for customer experience. So to me, the biggest difference between product management and customer experience is that product managers essentially are the voice of what the product should do and how we should transform and evolve the product. Essentially, I consider that I play that role for the customer experience capabilities that we build in the company. So I think the fundamental difference is it's really the same skill set applied to different areas of what we build in our company. Product management focusing on product, customer experience focused on really operational excellence and building out customer experience capabilities like communities and collaboration groups and ideas and online customer support and so on. So for me, that's the fundamental difference between product management and customer experience. They really do overlap a lot as far as the skill sets. Client engagement and engaging clients and making sure they're engaged is a very interesting topic. And essentially what we want to do in client engagement and account management is work with our clients to drive mutual value for the client and for modernizing medicine. So what's interesting is it's really you can lead the horse to water, but you can't make the horse drink. So there's a variety of levels of engagement of our clients, and our larger clients, we've got some great examples where they develop their own super user groups in-house, which is beneficial for them and it's beneficial for us because they can field questions and they can manage adoption internally. And then when they need us to assist, we have experts who know the product well and have, really leveraged their own internal resources to try to solve a problem before they come to us. So that would be on one end of the spectrum of highly engaged clients who are really taking ownership for their adoption and their success and the value they're driving from their investment with us. Unfortunately, we do have clients on the other end of the spectrum where, we really do everything we can to try to get them engaged and try to get them to show up for training when they're in the onboarding process and so on. And I think like all of us, everybody's busy. Doctors don't want to take time from seeing patients. It's understandable. We have different ways of trying to get our clients engaged if they're on that low engagement spectrum. But ultimately, it's really up to them. And if our clients aren't going to engage, they ultimately will not get the value out of the products and services that we offer. So we monitor that. We actually tag that in our CRM system so that we can escalate it if we need to and kind of pull all resources we have to try different ways in engaging with different people in the practice to try to show them the value that they're missing. But ultimately, there's always going to be some people that really don't engage.
That's very interesting, and I love the analogy about the horse and the drinking water, which is very relevant. And I think it's also interesting to hear that distinction between not only product management, but it's client engagement and not particular client, customer satisfaction per se. And it's very interesting to hear some of the strategies that you guys have in place as part of that client engagement vertical almost that touches everything.
Yeah, I think it's I'm working on a new visual, and it's really the customer life cycle wrapped around the product, and essentially everything in the customer life cycle from onboarding, training, optimization, operationalizing, and so on. It's really the customer experience is really wrapping those capabilities around the product. Mm-hmm. So again, it's really kind of a different set of capabilities that, the leader of customer experience is focused on those customer lifecycle capabilities, and the leader of product management is focused on product capabilities.
That makes perfect sense. Thank you for clarifying that. Good portion of the Ivy podcast listeners are the upcoming college graduates, the MBA students. What can you share from a perspective of client engagement in terms of a career choice? How would one get involved in such practice, and how would it help them through a career path? In anything specific or any examples that you can provide would be great.
Sure. It's interesting. I just got back from the Pulse conference, which is put on by a tool called Gainsight, which is a managed package on top of Salesforce.com, which may be too much information. But at this conference, they had a speaker from Heidrick & Struggles, and the speaker did a session on the chief customer officer role, and how do you prepare yourself to land this kind of role? And a lot of what she said really talked about how new this field is. And it's interesting, in the last 10 years, if you go back to 2007, 2008, with all the technology innovation from iPhone to what Google's done, and just really the consumerization of everything, it's really changed client engagement and account management fundamentally. So what's interesting is if someone out of school wants a career in this kind of area, there's a lot of different paths that can lead to roles in customer experience and account management. So, at Modernizing Medicine, we do have interns, and that's a great way to get your foot in the door. We also see people from support graduate into account management roles, and we see educators in our business also come into account management. So at ModMed, we actually have a full range of roles from entry level, through very, very senior people that are managing our biggest clients. And, the people that I see that really thrive in these roles are, obviously people that like to talk to clients and interact with clients and, figure out what makes people tick and how do I build relationships and how do I learn how to give both good news and bad news. So there's a lot of juggling and a lot of skills that are required. So, having really good analytical skills is super important because, essentially you're the voice to the customer, the face to the customer. So anything that happens with the relationship of the customer and our company is kind of fair game for any of your client interactions. So you really need to be able to assess any situation, whether it's, a support interaction that's an issue, or is it the product that's an issue, or is it a consulting service that's a challenge, but really whatever it is, good analytical skills are just critical to be able to, conceptually understand all the different challenges or opportunities that are coming your way as an account manager or a customer success manager, so that you can kind of broker between the client and then bringing the feedback or the issue back to the organization and engage the right people that you need to solve the problem. So, other kind of skills that are really important is just the continual learning. Again, because you're dealing with so many different parts of the company, every situation is an opportunity to learn about our products, learn about our services, meet more people in the company that can help you best serve our clients. So, analytical skills, relationship building skills, problem solving, learning, conflict management is super important because it's hard when you're going back into the organization and you have to negotiate and ask for things from many different people within the company that may have different priorities and may have a different agenda, not in a bad way. So I think by definition, the challenges and the problems tend to come to account management, and we interact strategically with our customers and we build trusted partnerships. But when you go back to the problems and the challenges and optimizing the experience, by definition, there's going to be conflict. So, people that are comfortable with conflict and, there is such a thing as healthy conflict, right? So how to make that conflict as healthy as possible and partnering with people, understanding their points of views, and again, really helping people inside the organization understand what is it like to be our customer. There can be a real stark difference when you're looking inside out versus outside in. And I'm kind of amazed and surprised and, continually challenged to make sure that for someone who really has a primary job of looking inside out and building product, how do we make sure that they have the customer in mind and the customer experience in mind, which really is many different touch points with many different parts of our company, not just any one touch point, which is usually the internal view if you're not in account management. So anyway, kind of rambling a little bit here, but it's for people that like to do different things, juggle, go-getters, customer success, account management, client engagement, really, really great field if you like to keep busy and like a wide range of challenges and you're kind of willing to just put yourself out there and stretch and learn and make mistakes and evolve. It's just a fantastic role.
Mm-hmm. I think that's very interesting because it sounds like, you're touching almost every aspect or every area of, any types of functional roles within any organization. And I love the fact that you highlight that it's a relatively new practice per se, because from client engagement perspective, you can build all kinds of cool products or projects or whatever, but if the client is not engaged, if the client is not utilizing that, then it really beats the purpose. So that's very interesting. Thank you for that.
Sure.
I want to spend a couple of minutes talking about leadership. It's something that I'm very interested in. I studied that in school, and I continue. It's an interesting topic for me. When I first met you at Ultimate Software, I was drawn at this entrepreneurial approach because I consider myself an entrepreneur, and I'm the same way, or that not really approach or even way of thinking at the time. Tell us a little bit about the role entrepreneurship or that rebel spirit, so to say, as part of your leadership style, and how does that play, at your current role?
I love this question too, and I remember when we first met, thinking the same thing, because you're always someone who is innovating and doing new things and not just doing one thing. So I think potentially we are cut from the same stone. For me, sometimes I'm almost surprised when someone says, hey, you're a rule breaker or you're super entrepreneurial, because I look at myself as someone, especially if I'm in new situations, I'm not a rule breaker. But I do know that when I'm in a situation and I understand a domain very well, if it doesn't seem right, if it's not working well, if it's not providing a great customer experience, I collect all of those different scenarios and kind of prioritize, which problems we're going to go solve and kind of where are they in the spectrum of, is this something that needs to be socialized? Is it not well understood? Versus, is this something that everybody acknowledges is a big problem or a great opportunity, and it's really in a place where all you got to do is push a little bit, and people are really on board to move forward. So, to me, leadership is when someone really can't look at anything without saying, how do we make it better? But also really collaborating and leading people to gather the collective wisdom about setting a vision for where you want to go, but leveraging those collaboration skills to also execute and deliver. Because we see over and over again, there's lots of people with a lot of great ideas, but at the end of the day, if you can't execute on them, you're not going to get the results. You're not going to get the evolution and the innovation that you want. So, so for me, it's really got to be, from a leadership perspective, it's got to be not just having a vision, because collecting that collective wisdom to set and adjust the vision is so important to get that buy-in. Because at the end of the day, you need people to make it happen. So be the visionary, be strategic, but you got to be willing to roll up your sleeves, especially in a younger cloud company with, 900 people. We're small enough and highly collaborative, and I think in cloud we're all rallying around this product. So collaboration is important with every company, but especially in a cloud company with one or two products. The interrelationships between all the teams is critical. So you got to have the vision, you got to adjust it and collect the wisdom of others. You got to lead to execution, and then you got to know what outcomes you're looking for in the form of KPIs and measurements, and also soft outcomes. It can't always be just about the numbers, but you got to be able to have that eclectic skill set in order to drive and make big things happen.
So on the same topic of leadership, great leadership is also about surrounding yourself with the rock stars and maybe people that are better than you in certain aspects. What strategies or methods have worked well for you in the past or currently to attract and retain that top talent for your teams?
Yeah, for me, it's really about connecting with the people, and may sound a little corny, but it really is how I operate. Is I view my role as a leader or as a manager of a team to capture hearts and minds of the people that work for me, so that they can do their best work. And it's a win-win, because if you can do that with your team, then you're also going to get the most throughput from the team. And we all just spend way too much time at work to not wake up every day and look forward to most of our work. It's work, so there's definitely going to be some things that we don't love to do, and that's just the cost of having a job where we love the job most of the time. Okay, I kind of forgot my train of thought, so we're going to have to cut
that
this
makes
one out.
sense. That's actually perfect clarification on, from that standpoint. Being an executive and the leader yourself, what do you look for in a leader? Maybe someone who you report to, or someone who is your mentor or a coach. What's important to you?
Yeah, there's another good question, because the last question you also talked about, sometimes, the kind of higher up you go in the chain, by definition, you're not going to necessarily be able to do the job of a person or multiple people that work for you. So, for me at this stage of my career, as far as, who do I want to report to and how can they best lead me, is I'm looking for someone who is interdependent with me. So I want to have freedom, but I also want to know that I have a great sounding board, or if I'm not sure what to do, that I have a comfortable open door that I can bounce things off of and fill in gaps of things that I don't know, or will catch me from my own blind spots or from going in the wrong direction. So interdependence is key. Listening and negotiating is really important to me. And to be honest, I'm kind of thinking of my current boss as I go through these areas. And if I'm working for someone who will listen to me and negotiate with me, what that means is if I bring an idea that may be counter to what my boss wants to do, we can kind of press the pause button and go through the idea and why, and what information do I have that my boss may not have, and that person's kind of open to listening and understanding where I want to go, and potentially will move in a direction that I want to go, but by the same token, I have to be willing to listen and negotiate and kind of give up on my idea if I receive information that, hey, that's not the right way to go. So, it really plays on the interdependence piece, but I think the listening and the flexibility and the negotiation is a really key part of that. Another thing that's super important for me is just to be able to stretch and learn. So this may be less about who I work for and more when I am leading people, but it definitely applies to both, is once you have a set of experiences under your belt, you really need to delegate and then go on to learning new experiences so you can expand your own skills and influence more and impact more. So there's times where I will pick someone and want to delegate something to them, and you see people that have varying levels of comfort in this kind of mode. If you're asking them to do something they've never done before, but you look at them and you know they have the skills to do it. So for me, I want to learn new things, and I want to work for someone who sees the potential and sees the skills. Even if I don't have that exact experience, they're willing to coach and mentor me to stretch and learn something new, again, so I can grow my own skills and make a bigger impact. And then kind of the last couple of things is, you really want to work with someone who's got your back. That's super important, and it means you can make a mistake and learn from it, and that's okay. And just someone who's going to support and advocate for you. And then give me the feedback. I want mostly constructive feedback. I don't need tons of pats on the back. I would say that periodically, maybe a few times a year, let me know I'm a keeper. I'm doing a great job. So don't need tons of positive feedback, but the constructive feedback is just so important because for any of us, everybody has blind spots. We can't do it alone. And if we don't have people we can rely on, not just our bosses, but peers, mentors, people inside the company, people outside the company that are willing to give us that feedback, we could develop fatal flaws that are going to be hard to change if a long period of time goes by and no one's, let us know that there's something that we really need to work on to be more successful.
I can't agree with you anymore, because especially the feedback aspect is very important and yet so often overlooked, especially when you're in a leadership role yourself. It's so oftentimes presumed that you're doing great, you're a leader, so you're the one who's providing feedback to others. Yet you also, as a professional, it's important to receive feedback as well. So I think that's very refreshing to hear that. As you're building your teams around you, I'm interested to hear about the interviews that you facilitate. Are they structured, or what does a typical interview look like when you talk to potential candidates for your teams? What are some of the questions or scenarios that you like to focus on, and what do you aim to spot in those responses that make you feel like that is a particular candidate exhibits the right qualities for your culture?
Yeah, so, I would call our interview, like, on the spectrum of structured to unstructured. It's somewhere in the middle, which is, what I like kind of for every process, how we find that sweet spot. We don't want zero structure, but if you have too much structure, it's harder for people to kind of lead and leverage their own experience and ad hoc in the right way in the moment, when they have a situation. So we use Greenhouse, and we outline the skills that are required for a certain role. And if someone is part of an interview process, either as an individual or as a panel, some of the questions or feedback are required versus optional, pending that role and the skills that we're looking for. So the most important thing, at ModMed and a few other companies I've worked for as well, but especially at ModMed, you don't get past the first interview if it's not a cultural fit. You could have the best experience in the world, but if it's not a cultural fit, if the candidate's values are not really aligned with our values, it's something that it's kind of chemistry to some extent, but there's other data points that you can look at as far as what kind of companies has a candidate worked for before, what kind of experiences do they have. So what you can kind of tell on the phone is different. You're a little bit more reliant on data on the phone versus, when you're interviewing in person. Again, you can still kind of probe for that cultural fit and look for the chemistry and, look for their expression. One question I love to ask is, what's the thing that ever happened to you? And I got this from restaurant business. You may say, why would you ask that question in a interview for a tech company? But it's kind of back to the internal collaboration and collaboration with our customers. I want to see people, they're expressive and they're passionate, and maybe that they can even laugh at themselves. So sometimes you got to ask questions like that. Or another one I like to ask is, if let's say this all works out and you Modernizing Medicine, what would our company be like that would make you say, gosh, this was a terrible decision. I wish I had never accepted the job. And that's a question that stumps people sometimes. So again, I'm kind of looking for their reaction. And I'm also looking for honesty and transparency, that they'll truly answer with something that would be so frustrating for them, that they would think, hey, this was a really bad idea that I took this job. So I think other than that, every role has a specific set of questions that is associated with it. And during an interview, you can't just ask a question and get a short answer and take it at face value. You got to keep digging. Give me an example. Tell me why you feel that way. So you got to keep digging. So I think the questions really from there are going to be more role specific, and pick 3 critical areas and just, again, make sure that you're probing and asking why and getting a really, really good sense for the candidate. And then finally, I would say, and I think this is so critical, is paint a very real picture of you love about the company you work for and what potential gaps or frustrations are, because obviously no company is perfect. Especially in a lot of the companies I've worked in, fast-growing cloud companies, the demand is more than the supply of resources to solve problems and fill the need. So if you don't have gaps, you're probably not growing so fast or not, so wildly successful. So it's really important in the interview process that we paint a very real picture of what the challenges are, because some challenges for some people are going to be super motivating if they feel like, hey, I can fix that, or I fixed it before. I understand that. Like, I'm not going to stand for that to be a gap. I'm going to fix it. But on the other end of the spectrum, some of the challenges could be something that would dictate, hey, this is not going to be a good fit for the candidate. And I want to know in the interview. I don't want to find that out, when they're 6 months in and we might see that the job is not a good fit for them.
That's great. On behalf of all the listeners who are looking to apply for a job in Modernizing Medicine, I thank you for such a generous insight into the interviews or some of the questions that you provide. It's very generous of you to share that information. I think that's very interesting to hear how, what you look for in terms of not only the responses, but that thought process, how they arrived at the particular response. I think that's very interesting. On a different interview, as far as I would like to hear about, what are the top 2 books that you always recommend to others, and why do you recommend them?
You know how hard this question is for me, because picking favorite books is like picking favorite children, and I love my 3 children dearly, and they're very different. So I'm going to do 3. I'm going to break, but and
there we go, breaking the rules again.
Exactly. There you go. There's just so many, and some of this kind of changes pending. But I actually recently did a session at our internal conference on Nikki's favorite books, and so it was kind of easy for me to go and pick the top 3 here that I would recommend. But the first one is The Lean Startup by Eric Ries, and essentially the method is agile methodology, which I think a lot of us who come from tech delivery backgrounds, understand. But the way he writes the book, it's really about, how do we create that minimum viable product and not try to over-engineer things, and then build on that minimum viable product. And, it's all the books I'm going to recommend here, and the ones that I like to read the best are ones that are interesting and super engaging and, make me want to go to work in the morning because I get to listen to a book for an hour before I get there. But the Lean Startup is fantastic and really applies to non-startups. It's really, building everything and going through that full customer and product life cycle and how to start small and continue to build until you evolve and innovate to where you want to be and really continually innovate. So that's the first one. Second one is Just Listen by Mark Goulston. Fantastic book, and I highlight this because probably no surprise from listening to the podcast, I am wired to be a talker, and listening is the most important skill and leadership skill that I think anyone can have. So I am constantly working on how can I be a better and a better listener, and this book is just a fantastic tool to help build listening skills in a lot of different situations, and it's a very interesting read with the various stories that he tells. So the last one, my extra book here, is one that I read a really, really long time ago, but I can tell you that some of the book is still so fresh in my mind that I'll repeat quotes from the book in my head and in certain situations. And the name of this book is The Contrarian's Guide to Leadership. And I omitted the author here in my notes. I think it was Steve, maybe. No, I'll have to get back to you on that. But The Contrarian's Guide to Leadership, it was written by the head of SUNY New York, an acclaimed university. And one reason I love this book, it was very contrarian, and I've read probably 50 or more leadership books, and maybe it goes back to the rule breaker, rebel part of me, but he really gives you kind of a different view of leadership, and it's very, very thought-provoking. And one quote from the book that I'll share is, he says, "Leaders make decisions at the last practical moment." And I just love this quote because I feel like when we're leading teams or leading projects, people look at us and they want us to decide in the moment. And sometimes we need to, but there's so many times where we don't need to decide in the moment. We need to decide at the right moment. And we need to balance collecting the information we need to make an intelligent decision with the timeliness required of making that decision. So an example, I'll give a non-work example of this, but I remember one of my children, maybe 4 years before this child got a driver's license, saying, what kind of car should I get? Should I get this car or that car? And it's a fun conversation to have, but when I get that kind of question, I'm thinking to myself, you truly have at least 4 years to make that decision, especially, I'm not sure you would have saved up enough money at that point to buy your car, but it's always interesting to me how people push people to make decisions quickly, when sometimes you don't need to. On the other hand, you don't want to gather every piece of information in the world and delay a decision and miss an opportunity. So again, it's how do you find that sweet spot of making timely decisions, having enough information, but making that decision in the right time, so that it's effective, not too early, not too late.
I love that quote, and I'm also taking the notes of these books so I can add it to my Kindle list. And for the listeners, we'll have the books and the titles with the links to those in the episode notes. So thank you for sharing that, Nikki. So in closing remarks, is there anything that you would like to share that we have not touched upon? Any advice, perhaps, or words of wisdom?
Yeah. I guess, what I'm going to say, and I probably touched on it a bunch, is, one thing I love at this point in my career, I've got like 25 plus years of experience. So, not ready to retire. I'm definitely going to be out there for 10 plus years. Sometimes I think I will never retire. But one thing I love about this stage of my career is, while I don't necessarily love getting older and getting more wrinkles, what I really do love is experiences build my confidence and I believe make me a more effective leader. So, as I'm interacting throughout the organization and I look at people earlier in their careers and we're in the same situations, and I feel like I have an advantage because, I've been in a similar experience or I have other experience that I can draw from, whether it's data patterns or it's just like the problem, we're all trying to solve together. So it's just been really fun to take everything I've learned and all the experiences I've had up until now and apply that in the situations I'm in today, and to really use it to collaborate with people. I'm not, there's nothing wrong with this, but I'm not one of these people that kind of has to have the answer. My focus is really about getting things done. So it's really gratifying to take everything I've learned and all the roles I've played up till now and leverage that knowledge and apply it in these situations. So hopefully the wrinkles won't get so bad, but if you're early in your career, just put yourself out there and stretch and have people that help you stretch and help you learn new skills so that you can grow, your influence and your skill set. And just know the more experiences you get under your belt, the more confidence you're going to have, and really the more impact you can make.
Well, that's very encouraging. Definitely thank you for sharing that advice. And in general, I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us today. You provided a lot of insight, a lot of valuable advice and responses in terms of the career and from client engagement all the way through the leadership and some of the interviews and things like this. I really appreciate it. Thank you for taking the time, and I look forward to reconnecting with you in a couple of years to hear about the progress you guys are making.
Me too. Really appreciate you having me on. Thank you.
Thanks, Nikki. Take care, and bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the Ivy Podcast. Be sure to subscribe to our RSS feed on ivypodcast.com and all major podcasting platforms like Spotify and iTunes. As always, if you enjoyed this podcast, please give us a rating on iTunes.